Project 571, genetically engineered vampire created to destroy evil.
What do you want?
We need your help to kill a vampire.
Malleus Maleficario. It was written by a witch. The first witch. Titania.
That was a little snippet from The Witch's Hammer, the first film I ever solo directed, and it's just been remastered and re-released on Amazon. So if you like witches and vampires, then please do check it out. Anyway, let's get on with this week's episode. Hi, Jim here, and you're listening to the Honest Filmmaker podcast. This week I'm chatting to filmmaker Alex Srednoselac. How you doing, Alex?
Doing well, how are you?
Good, thank you very much. So I came across you actually because you've got a pretty good YouTube channel which has got a bunch of tips on it for indie filmmakers. So I suggest everyone checks that out. And there's lots of things on there I noticed I'd like to talk about. But I guess let's start where it started for you. I'm imagining this journey with your first feature film. So tell me about that. What is it and how did you get it off the ground?
Yeah, so strictly speaking about the feature film, I wrote and directed. I mean, I really did everything, but I basically made a no-budget feature film titled Cashing Out, so the poster there behind me. Shot that back in 2017, spent most of writing it in 2016, and then I spent the next 3 years editing it, releasing it in 2020. Leading up to that, though, I made numerous short films. Like, I can't remember a time where I didn't want to be a filmmaker. Like I'd been doing it since I was a kid. It evolved a lot more once I kind of got into my college university years. But I made a lot of short films. I worked on other people's no budget features. And by the time 2017 rolled around, I built up enough confidence to, write and direct my own feature.
Yeah. And did you fund it yourself or did you get money to make it?
Yeah. So I funded everything myself. I was working part-time at a movie theater when I had made the film. Actually, I may have moved to full-time at that point. I can't remember the timeline. But I worked partially part-time and then eventually moved to full-time. But I was able to do that because I lived at home with my parents and I'm very frugal. So I didn't have very many bills, driving used cars. My parents didn't make me pay rent. I was basically living the dream life for a filmmaker during those years. So that's how I was able to pull that off. So I spent about $15,000 of my own on the feature. About a third of that went to production, the rest towards post-production. But yeah, I didn't have necessarily like a set budget, if you will. I kind of just paid for things as they came up. And the grand total just ended up being a little over $15,000.
Right. And over what period did it take you to make that film?
So I wrote it. I mean, it's a complicated answer because I started writing it back in 2013. I couldn't really find a story that I liked. And then eventually, I guess I should probably explain what the movie's about, but it's about poker players that rob other poker players. So that the robbing other poker player aspect isn't something I came up with until about 2016. So once I had that idea, I kind of just ran with it. I think I wrote it within a couple of months, and then I spent the next few months just getting pre-production stuff ready. So spent pretty much all of 2016 writing and pre-production. 2017 I spent about 3 months making the movie. We started in late February and then finished in early June, and then I spent the next 2.5 years just editing. I did the entire post-production process, aside from coloring, but like editing, sound design, sound editing, all that. I did all that. I quit about 2019, and then I say quit. I decided to stop working on the film at about mid 2019, and then release the film. That's actually coming up on 6 years here, January 15th of 2020.
Right. Okay. So there's a couple of things I take from that. But one of them, I've done that myself actually, where you sort of do everything in post-production. And I would never recommend that to anybody because it is madness, isn't it? It's kind of, everything's on your shoulders. I don't know about you, but when I did that, you feel guilty if you're not working on it. And it's kind of this thing that's sort of hanging over you the whole time, but you're also conscious of, how much there is that you need to do on a feature film.
Mhm.
Just sound design on a scene alone is just enormous. So having now made a couple on from that where people do that stuff, someone does sound design and someone does all those other things, it's amazing when someone sends you something, they've actually done all the stuff that would have caused me to have a meltdown. So that was a reasonably long production for a film. I'm not going to say anything because my first one took me about 7 years, I think, because they do take a long time. What do you think was your biggest lesson from that first feature film?
Well, I there's a lot of lessons. I don't know if I had one particularly big lesson, because I call this movie film school the movie, because like I spent 15,000, but I'm going to put an asterisk on that, just because like I went all out on this movie. I knew I wanted to learn every aspect about production, about distribution, all of that. So like I did a lot of things that I don't think a lot of filmmakers necessarily need to do. Like I actually filmed a video for my YouTube channel that I'll put out here pretty soon about breaking down the budget and how much money I made and all that on it. But I probably could have got away, if I cut out all the fat, I probably could have got away with only spending 10,000. So about 5,000 on production and a little under 5,000 on post production. But I did a theatrical release. I did I went self distribution. I did all the marketing myself. So I guess the biggest takeaway, and this is something I talk about on my channel a lot, is that you need to kind of be the cheerleader for your independent film, because you don't have millions of marketing dollars to throw at it. Like why does Hollywood spend so much money on film advertising? And it's because people aren't going to watch a movie they don't know exists. So you don't have that kind of money. How are you going to get your movie in front of people's eyeballs? And a lot of people rely on just scrolling through streaming services and hoping that they see and like your poster and your trailer and all that. And it's just not enough. So for me, my biggest takeaway that I've learned, honestly, this lesson is I've learned it kind of beyond just releasing it, is that you really need to be the cheerleader, the loudest voice to get your film in front of people's eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a weird, I don't know how you felt when you started doing that, but personally, I sort of struggled a little bit with that, because I felt like I was just me, look at this thing I've done, everyone. And you start to maybe think about people in your close circle who are probably sick to death of hearing about it. But then after a while, you don't care, do you? You just think, like you say, the more eyes you get on it, and the way these algorithms work, chances are if you put 30 things up, someone's going to see one of them. So you really do need to go to town on it. Just thinking, what was it you said? I was going to so self-distribution on that film. Was there ever a time when you were considering traditional sales agent distributor, or was that always what you had in mind?
Well, like I said earlier, I really wanted to get the full experience. So since I wasn't concerned about making the money back, I thought, traditional distribution would have been a fine avenue to go. Actually, one distributor approached me back in like 2018. Like I was in Las Vegas with my wife on vacation, and I got an email about distribution. I was like, whoa, okay, somebody's taking me seriously finally. But then I started listening to Alex Ferrari's Indie Film Hustle podcast. I don't know if you're familiar, if your audience is familiar, but that's kind of like the OG podcast of the format of this show, right? Like I listened to his show religiously, and just I started learning about just predatory distributors and such. And the more I listened to his show and the more I kind of looked into it, I just became probably a little scared, if I'm being transparent. But I just didn't see it being a viable route for me, just because I didn't want to give up complete ownership. Like having ownership of my work is very important to me. So once I kind of I don't, there wasn't like an aha moment or anything like that. Like I can't pinpoint one particular moment, but over time I'm just like, I think this is something that I can do on my own. So some naivety to that too. Um, but yeah, eventually I was just like, I think this is something I can accomplish myself, and I just went full steam ahead doing it.
Yeah. And I'll come back to self distribution because there's tons of questions I can ask you about that. But just thinking about this lesson about promoting your film and being the cheerleader, what would be your tips for somebody to kind of spread the word about their film? What can they do?
Yeah, so I didn't say this in the beginning, but for the last few years, I've been working on, like, my day job is I work as the director of content for a major YouTube channel. So
Right.
I've been learning a lot about marketing, pretty heavily for the last couple of years because, like, the channel is it's a bourbon YouTube channel, like whiskey and stuff like that. So I'm working with a niche audience already. So that's something super important. That's something Alex Ferrari always talked about, was finding a niche topic, and I think that's very, for one, I think that's probably one of the most important things you can do because one lesson I've been thinking about a lot, or as far as like thinking about Hollywood, like Hollywood is, they make a lot of sequels, they do a lot of IP, right? And then people like me sit here and complain why they make 15 Marvel movies, and then I go off and make something original that nobody watches, and then I wonder why. And the next Marvel movie makes $1 billion at the box office, and it's because it's proven, right? It's very hard to make a new product and get it out into the market. It's a lot easier when you have a built-in audience, and building an audience takes a lot of time. So, as far as tips, like niching down, like, find a genre that you really like. Like, I'm considering making a lot of horror projects in the future. Hopefully, that's a pretty easy route to go. If you want to make, like, something very low budget that has sequel potential, you could build an audience that way. Um, get people in your community just to care, build Facebook pages and Instagram pages, mark or email lists, like do your best there. I mean, if you can get a topic that people truly care about, you could do maybe even a crowdfunding campaign. That's building an audience easily right there. So I'm still trying to figure this out myself. So as you can see, my answer here's a little rambly. But there's a lot that you can do. For me personally, like in cashing out, like I spent a lot of time building um a Facebook page, which I have accidentally deleted. So I guess my biggest tip is don't delete your Facebook page.
Good tip. Yeah.
Yeah. I made a lot of YouTube videos on it. I mean, that's primarily why I started my channel, was so I could talk about my movie and get people kind of interested in it. So there's a lot of avenues. Like, there's no kind of one avenue. But if you can find a platform where you can be the loudest voice for your film and have it work, I mean, that's definitely the biggest piece of advice that I could give.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd just add to that, I guess, because I know that feeling all too well. There's so many platforms out there. There's so many places you could potentially talk about your movie. And just picking up on what you were saying, it's a bit like you sort of need to know who you are and what it is you're actually selling to people, not in terms of give me $5, more what it is, what's the idea, what's the hook, what's the thing I'm selling, and then where are those people who are interested in that particular thing, and then get on
Exactly.
that platform. But it's
Mhm.
hard, and I'd say it's, for me, it's been trial and error. It's been try this platform, try that platform. It's just throw things everywhere until stuff starts to stick, and maybe that's the course to go down. um did you try film festivals, or was that not on the table for cashing out?
I did do film festivals, and I actually have a film festival story because I'm still kind of bitter about it.
Oh no.
So you can't see it, or actually you can see it. Our screens are a little compressed here, but this award right here is the biggest award I've won. I got that. That's at World Fest Houston, which is like a film festival where, like, or Steven Spielberg debuted a film at some points. Like, a lot of filmmakers who have become bigger names have had films at this film festival. So I was super excited about getting into this film festival. So I got the notification that I had won this award. It was best first feature. So, I'm just like, I'm losing my mind, because this was like a shot in the dark. I applied to a lot of film festivals, and, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to get, I would say this is kind of like a medium sized film festival. Like, it's not a major one. It's not a minor one. It's just right in the middle there. So they weren't going to fly me out, but they were going to pay for my hotel.
Nice.
They were, transportation to and from the festival. Like, I just had to show up. And they would have like a big awards, like tuxedo kind of thing.
Yep.
And then that was in February of 2020 when I got the notification. And then in March is when everything happened with COVID. So
Damn it.
that film festival did not happen. It has not since happened. I mean, the film festival has since happened. But, the 2020 awards have not since happened. But anyway, I'm still bitter about that. But
yeah,
I have done a handful of festivals. I don't think I've gone to any, just because like my film was primarily shown during COVID and everything was still locked down. So if I did participate in something, it was remotely. But I spent about $900 on festivals. I don't remember how many I submitted to, probably at least 20 or 30, I want to say. And I got into probably a third of those, maybe. But I won a few awards, which I definitely plastered all over the posters. There's another marketing tip. Put laurels on those that poster, right? But I have a love-hate relationship with film festivals. I think it's important for marketing. I don't think you should put a ton of money into festivals, but I would say submitting to a handful of them in hopes of trying to get some awards is super important.
Yeah, it's a very tricky space because there's so many of them, and you really need to go in with a strategy, but that in itself can be difficult because you could spend a lot of time trying to work your way into a particular festival and just get a no. And like you say, $900 when your film costs say 15 or 10,000, that's actually quite a big percentage of that budget.
Exactly.
So yeah, I don't know where I am with festivals. I'm not sure. I think for me now, the next feature I make, I don't know what that is. Unless it's something that I think will specifically benefit from festival plaudits, I probably wouldn't bother. I'd probably save the money personally.
I think it just depends on what kind of movie you make too. Like if you are making an action movie or a horror movie, film festivals probably aren't as necessary, just because like horror, if you can find a good niche, you'll probably find some sort of built-in audience. But if you're made, like for me, I made a thriller. It was really a drama. But if you make something kind of outside of a typical genre film that has a built-in audience, film festival, those laurels can be important, just giving your film some sort of social proof. I mean, even in genre films, it can be important. So yeah, I agree with you there, but I the awards and all that, for as much as it doesn't matter, at the end of the day, it does matter. I'll give you I'll give you a real world example. It's not an awards example, but my boss was featured in Forbes recently. Had like an article written about him, and he's exactly like what I said. He doesn't care about that kind of stuff, but that article has opened a lot of doors for us. So unfortunately, the legacy media kind of old school way of doing things still matters to some degree.
Yeah, I'm saying I wouldn't enter them, but what will happen is I'll finish it and I'll probably go on Film Freeway and I go, oh, that's only $20, that one. I'll probably end up spending $200 on film festivals. So I'm not ruling it out. Film festivals, we talked about that. Talking about self-distribution, picking how you go about that now. If you had a feature film you just finished now, where would you put it? Would you go straight to FilmHub? Would you talk to Indie Rights? What would be your top pick?
So that's a very difficult question to answer now, because if you would ask me this 5 years ago, my answer from 5 years ago changes a lot from what it is right now. Because now like I think about this a lot. Like if I were to do the same exact route as I did with cashing out, I don't know if I'd quite have the same success just because the landscape is always changing so quickly. So to kind of give you an overview of just what I did when I first did the movie, I um, did Amazon Prime Video Direct, which no longer exists. Well, I mean, it exists if you're already on there, but you can't put any new content on there. But I did that to some success. I also did Vimeo on demand to no success, but I mean, that is a self distribution avenue you can go through if follows fails. And then I didn't even do FilmHub for like the first year that I put my movie out. So, you know, back then that strategy worked pretty great, but now I'm not so sure. So, you know, for self distribution, I don't really like things that I can't control. And you know, giving my film to another platform, like I'm never going to have complete levels of control because I can't control. I can't just we can't go to the the streaming service and just give them our movies, right? Like some people have that relationship. I'm probably never going to have that relationship. Like Tubi's not going to call me and say, "When's the next Alex Srednoselac film going to come out?" Um, so right now it's tough just because like you know like streaming revenue is just down overall. So I don't know what platforms are great or good, you know, which ones are going to be upcoming. If I made a movie for no money and I didn't care about making any money back, I would say FilmHub is probably the way to go. FilmHub has definitely become a lot more pay to play recently, which is unfortunate. They've gotten rid of a lot of features that I think, well, they were free, you know, when I first got on the platform, and now they're behind a paywall, which is really frustrating. But you know, like if you can get on FilmHub without any problems, I think that's the way to go. You're still going to have the marketing problem. I mean, you're going to have the marketing problems no matter where you are, but at least with FilmHub, you know, you don't have to spend any money up front, which is very helpful. So if you can really just put all of your time and resources into kind of directing traffic to one particular platform, you know, that's probably the way to go. Although if you have investors or you do care about turning a profit, I'm starting to recommend indie rights as like the first kind of step, just because they seem to have they guarantee platforms is the big thing. Like FilmHub doesn't guarantee, aside from Relay now, you know, their own platform, they don't guarantee that you're going to get on Amazon or Tubi or any of this. And you know, that's very risky if you have investors or are looking to turn some sort of a profit. So at least with indie rights, you have a lot more of a chance to make some money. And you know, their distribution deal is very similar to FilmHub's, you know, the 80-20 split, 80 to filmmakers, 20 to them. And you know, they don't have any kind of bogus fees like a lot of other distributors. And you know, there could be other distributors who are not predatory that can have great deals too, that have even more expanded opportunities than something like FilmHub or Indie Rights does. So I don't think there's a one size fits all answer. For me, most likely my next feature is probably going to be something very cheap and something I won't care about making money on. So FilmHub will probably be the way to go. But something I've been thinking about too is, you know, like since I'm kind of in the filmmaking space and the YouTube space, there's another YouTube channel, a big YouTube channel, Yes Theory, that's, you know, they have tens of millions of subscribers, and they made a documentary, and they went the self-distribution route, but you know, put it on their own platform, sort of like a Vimeo on demand. I don't know what they did exactly. They probably made their own website. I haven't really looked too heavily into this, but you know, that is kind of attractive to me too. So if I can build a good audience and just direct them to one place, what's to stop me from just sending them to my own website and just skipping all the other things? Now the problem with that is that I'm probably not going to have a Yes Theory size audience, and I'm going to have, you know, it's going to be much smaller. I'm probably going to need all those different platforms. So it's complicated, right?
Yeah, it is complicated. There's a lot of options out there. Um, And you're right. And I guess what I was going to ask you was, so I've never been on the paid version of FilmHub. I know some filmmakers who do, and I have seen the main page change in a couple of things. In your opinion, what's the biggest thing we've lost, you think, from the free plan?
Support mostly. Like this is something they just recently took away. Actually, here's the biggest thing that's affected me personally. I guess it hasn't really affected me too much, but it has affected other people because this was a strategy that I would recommend. But they don't allow you to distribute to other platforms that they offer. So, for an example, I mentioned at the beginning that I'm on Amazon Prime Video Direct. Well, the thing is that they offer Amazon as a streaming platform, which they don't guarantee any platforms, but I haven't seen anybody not get on Amazon once they sign up for FilmHub. But you can't say, oh, I don't want you to distribute on Amazon. I'm going to go do that off of my own. I was able to do that because I got into FilmHub before they made all these changes. So, that's a big change. That's something that they do offer it, but it's behind a paywall. But most recently, they don't offer email support anymore. They say go to our frequently asked questions section for any problems you have. And one of the biggest issue I have with that is that every sort of QC problem that you can have is not addressed in their frequently asked questions. So if you have like one of the most common things people come to me, because I do a lot of FilmHub tutorials on my YouTube channel, people like one of the most common things people ask me about are about closed caption timing, or if they have duplicate frames and such, like very, very niche technical things. FilmHub doesn't address any of those things. So if I'm a filmmaker who's not technically savvy, I don't know how to fix that, and it's not in your support, what am I supposed to do? I have no choice but to just submit. They give you like a 3 strikes and you're out kind of policy as far as submitting the first time. If I don't know what I'm doing and I can't get a hold of anybody, then what? Or say you're having a problem on the platform with payments or whatever, now you're not going to be able to talk to anybody about that. Or actually, one I just thought of, they don't show you the lifetime performance of your film. They only show you 6 months back. Unless, well, there's an asterisk to that, but they had a nice chart where I could look at any month how much my movie has made, and they got rid of that. Now I can look at what they've paid me every month, but not what the film brought in for that month, so the revenue. So there's a lot of basic sort of reporting that they've put behind a paywall, which I find particularly frustrating, because it's like you go into YouTube's back studio and all that data, they give out so much data for free, even if you are not making money on the platform. And then FilmHub is just like the most basic data possible. They're like, you got to pay us. It's like $1,000 a year right now, which I just think is just silly.
That is a lot. That is a lot. I think a lot more people would probably sign up if it was $20 a month or something like that.
Yeah,
you might do it. And if you could
exactly.
dip in, if you could just do the $20, get a month's worth, and then opt out, that'd be perfect. So yeah, there's a lot of things in there that agree with you completely. Email support thing is a real, because I remember when I put the first film I'd put on FilmHub, that 3 strikes thing does scare you, because you think you get a 1 strike, and especially if you don't know what the reason is, it's getting rejected. It's not very clear exactly what it is, and it can be a tiny little technical thing. That can be disheartening. So yeah, that is a big one. I wasn't too fussed about the statistics, but I am now you've said that. So we talked about self-distribution, we talked about FilmHub. Tell me, looking back on everything now, where you are now, and include the day job in this, the YouTube stuff, what do you wish you knew when you first sort of started out?
What do I wish I knew? That's a good question, because I try not to look back and like wish for anything particular. I mean, if I wish I would have known everything I know now, right? Because I would have had a much easier time, especially with the marketing. I think the marketing thing is probably the biggest avenue, because like one thing I've always heard throughout my entire career, even when I was younger, and I never understood it, and I still don't understand it to a degree. But one of the things I've always read in filmmaking books and, YouTube channels and just everything I've ever researched is know who your audience is before you make the movie. And when you're creative, because I consider myself, I don't, 50-50 split is probably not accurate, but I consider myself like 50-50 uh, business minded and the other side creative. So when you're a creative person, you're not thinking about that. You just want to write what you want to write. And that's definitely how I was when I was in my 20s when I was making films. Like I definitely thought about the business a little bit. I think about it a lot more now. But, I was the creative person. Like I didn't care who was going to watch Cashing Out. I'd be like, yeah, poker players will watch my movie Cashing Out because it's about poker. And I was dead wrong about that. So, that's something I wish I would have taken a little bit more seriously back then, because I think I would have just had an easier time, just writing a story that was a little bit more appealing to a particular audience. Because I still debate on who the audience is for Cashing Out, aside from people who kind of support me. Like I don't think there's like a defined audience for that movie. I don't know if any of my work necessarily has a defined audience. But that's something I want to start taking a little bit more seriously, thinking about just like who this movie's for. Like I talked to a filmmaker recently who made a movie around the Andy Griffith Show, which is smart because it's like you're kind of taking a built-in audience for something and you're turning it into something new. So that way you have an easier time marketing it. So he thought about who the audience was for this film, and it was for fans of this show, or a particular horror genres. Like you're thinking about the fans of that genre. So the my answer is always going to be the marketing, just because like it's something I still don't understand completely. I'm still always learning about it. But from a filmmaking perspective, because I think that's probably a little bit more useful to people who are kind of a little more creative and not business minded. For the filmmaking aspect, I wish I would have done a little bit more of what I wanted and not been so concerned about it's almost like the exact opposite of what I just
I was going to
said.
say, it sounded like
It's
that's
the
where you were
exact
going.
opposite of
Yep.
where I'm going with this. So I apologize that I'm kind of contradicting myself here, but I wish I would have cared less about what people thought and just been a little bit more creatively free. Because when I was in my 20s, I took filmmaking so seriously. I'm like, I need to make good films. I need to be the best writer. I need to do this and I need to do that. And I think honestly that stunted my work a lot. Like I think it held me back from doing a lot of things I could have done. Cause like we know when I was in high school, like I was just making whatever. Like I still cared about that kind of thing, but I was just making whatever I wanted. Whereas like I was so worried about, are people going to perceive me as being a good filmmaker? And now like I think as artists, like it's kind of impossible to not think about that, because we deep down we want people to care about our work. But I'm definitely leaning a lot more these days towards just not caring about that, unless I needed to make money. If I needed to make money, that's a little bit different. That requires a whole different sort of mindset. But just specifically from a filmmaking perspective, I wish I would have just been a little bit more creatively free.
I know where you're coming from, and it is that what you're talking about with those two sides is that line that you have to skate between doing something you love and doing something that people are actually going to want to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not easy. And it's not easy even when you're writing. It's not easy because if you're not careful, as you're writing, you hear that voice on your shoulder going, no one's going to watch this. This is too weird and doesn't fit into a genre, and you have to ignore all of that. And then, yeah, absolute headache. I'll finish with the question I ask most of my guests, which is, have you got a motto? Have you got like a mantra you live by?
Oh man, I don't know if I necessarily have something. Having a motto is almost like too concise. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, do I live on one particular thing? I'm trying to live a little bit more presently. Like, I've lived very much in the past. It kind of goes back to what I was saying, because I've had a lot of things happen in my life, good and bad, and I've had a lot of time to reflect on those things, just because, like, my 20s were very, very easy. I lived easy. I was able to kind of do whatever I want. And then after I turned 30, reality kind of set in. And, like, I had a lot of personal things happen that, I don't even know how to put it in the right words, but it's changed me a lot. So I'm trying to live a little bit more presently. I'm trying to live a little more creatively freeing, because at the end of the day, like, once we're all gone, none of this is going to matter. I want to be able to look back on the work that I've done and kind of be proud, as far as, like, is this something I did I make this for me, or did I make this for some nefarious reason? So that is, I am trying to just be more free overall.